Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting of our Learning and Families Executive Committee. I'd just like to welcome our head teachers who are here today. So Mrs. Laura Fowler from Blackford and Mrs. Angela Thompson from Gilton and Mrs. Eleanor Paul from the Academy. So welcome, thanks for taking time out. I know you're all busy, so it's really appreciated that you're here today. And I will ask Andy, our clerk, if there are any apologies. I don't think that there are.
No apologies from all members.
Thank you, Andy. Any declarations of interest from members? Perfect, thank you. We'll just move on to the minute of the last meeting. Can we agree it, or are there any comments with regards to that? Thank you very much. And if we move on to the main paper of the meeting, which is our standards and quality in schools, learning communities and preschool centre / daycare of children. And David's going to introduce it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. This paper provides a comprehensive overview of the standards and quality of educational provision across Perth and Kinross, focusing on schools, learning communities and early learning and childcare settings. It draws on inspection findings from Education Scotland and the Care Inspectorate, covering the period since the last Executive Subcommittee meeting on 2nd June 2025. The report's framed within the context of the National Improvement Framework and the National Standards for ELC providers, offering both evaluative insights and strategic direction for continuous improvement. The document highlights inspection outcomes for Blackford Primary School, Giltown Primary and Nursery School, and Perth Academy, detailing strengths and areas for improvement. In terms of daycare of children, Care Inspectorate inspections, a total of 5 inspections have been undertaken and published with the Care Inspectorate since the Executive Subcommittee last met. For the 20 indicators inspected, 11 received a very good grading, 8 received good, and 1 received an adequate grading. There have been no Kids Club inspections since the last Executive Subcommittee meeting, and there have been no childminding inspections. Notably, the report evidences strong performance, particularly in primary and ELC settings, with over 75% of evaluations rated as good or better. However, it also identifies those areas that still require targeted support. It underscores the importance of robust self-evaluation, leadership and collaborative improvement planning. It outlines the mechanism through which action plans are developed and monitored, promoting our expectation that all settings meet or exceed the local expectation of good evaluations. I'm going to invite our quality improvement managers here today, Nick Thompson and Eve Moran, and our head teachers, to walk us through the 3 inspections that we have in front of us. And obviously there will be an opportunity for questions from elected members to any of the officers who are present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. So I'm here to talk regarding Blackford Primary School. It's a non-denominational school located in the village of Blackford. At the time of inspection, there were 55 children across 3 composite classes. There is no nursery provision in the school. I should say Margaret McMillan was the head teacher during the time of the inspection. Margaret then took the opportunity to retire at the end of the academic session, and Mrs. Laura Fowler, who is with us today, was appointed as the new head teacher. Laura's previous role was as deputy head teacher at Borstone Primary School in Stirling. Blackford was inspected by HMI in April 2025. It was a short model inspection that focused on 2 key areas: learning, teaching and assessment, and raising attainment and achievement. The evaluations for the 2 QIs were 2.3 good and 3.2 good. The inspection team found the following strengths in the school's work. Led effectively by the head teacher, all staff have created a nurturing and inclusive environment. They saw relationships across the school as very positive and based clearly on mutual trust and respect. They found the children were welcoming, friendly and proud of their school. They engaged enthusiastically in class and talked confidently about their successes in learning. They found teachers make very effective use of digital technologies across all aspects of learning and teaching. That children use a range of digital tools confidently to support and enhance their learning across the curriculum and to develop their digital skills. I'll now pass over to Laura to take us through the progress with the identified points for action.
So I'm Laura Fowler, new head teacher at Blackford Primary School. There were two main areas for action identified in the report, and the first one was that the head teacher and staff should continue to raise attainment, particularly in writing and numeracy. I've met with obviously our staff team, and we've agreed the following action points as part of our school improvement plan this year. Firstly, to revisit the Perth and Kinross Council Learning, Teaching, Assessment and Moderation Framework and work collegiately together to self-evaluate and look at areas that we could be taking points forward. I've met with our team of pupil support assistants, and we have identified some key targeted interventions that we'd like to look at some training, particularly on the November inset this year, so that we're able to take that forward with identified learners to raise attainment. We are going to work together to deliver a set of collegiate sessions with our teachers focused on co-creation of success criteria. So the children are working with us to say what a good one looks like, looking at effective feedback, including our written feedback, our skills-based curriculum, and also looking at assessment for learning. And working with the teachers to consider some professional inquiries in identified areas of numeracy, such as problem solving. We'll be working together to look at how we moderate our work and collaborate together, particularly across the learning community, so that we can enable staff across our schools to engage in more frequent moderation activities to share best practice and improve consistency. And also working within our staff team to work across our classes collaboratively to ensure that children's strengths are maximised and that needs are identified. And I think that's where our composite learning is a particular advantage to us, so we can meet children where they are in their learning. The second area of development was that teachers needed to use assessment data and other key information to evaluate and evidence that planned interventions are improving outcomes for children, and they should use this information to inform their future planning. So thinking about assessment and planning, we'll be reviewing and enhancing the Blackford Primary School assessment calendar to ensure consistent opportunities for learners to demonstrate breadth and depth and their application of knowledge. And we'll be looking systematically to having an approach to tracking their progress over time. We'll be implementing a data-informed decision-making system at class and whole school level so that our identified gaps are known and that we've got really good planned interventions that are targeted to learner needs, but also improve how we measure the impact of those ASN supports and review that early so that we can ensure that we've got early and an effective intervention in place. And we'll evaluate existing planning documents and creating new progression planners across the curriculum areas where they're needed. Our attendance and achievement will be looking at our attendance data a little bit more closely and implement appropriate interventions to improve attendance, particularly late coming. We'll be developing a system to track wider achievement so that children's achievements and successes outside of school are really well known to us, so that our children are getting a breadth of experiences that extend their skills, and that we recognise that they learn outside of school too. And for raising attainment for all, further staff development on nurture, emotional regulation and inclusive classrooms. And we've already taken some of that forward looking at emotion works. We'll be measuring the impact of those interventions for identified learners, and where there's bespoke programmes in place for children, we'll be making sure that those levels of enhanced support are fit for purpose and measuring what's important to those children and celebrating their successes, even if they're just small steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions and or comments from members, please? Billy Hearn.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your report there. I think it's a really good report, having read through it, and I've actually read the summarised inspection of findings. And I want to pick up on the first part, which was the assessment data and key information to evaluate evidence and planned interventions. And one of the paragraphs in the bigger report is talking about pretty much what you were saying there, but I'm just a bit more interested because it says here staff now need to ensure that they evaluate and evidence well the impact of interventions and challenge on children's attainment, and they need to use this information to inform future planning. So can I ask what was not being done and how that affected future planning? And was it substantial, or was it just trying to refine what's in place already? Thank you.
Probably one for me, because I worked support school as quality improvement officer, and obviously Laura's just come in at the start of this term. I think what that point was referencing, the school were identifying children for interventions, so they picked up some particular key issues, let's say around children's reading or writing or spelling, and they were running those interventions, but they were running them for quite lengthy periods of time without regularly reviewing them. And therefore, what inspectors were saying was, if they took more regular opportunities to measure the impact of that, it would mean you're not carrying on if the children have already improved and stop it and go elsewhere, or if it's not working, change that and do something different. So I think what inspectors were trying to do was to ask the school to reflect a little bit more regularly about measuring the impact of what they were doing and using that then to inform next steps for children, which is, yeah, I think a fair point and something that as we introduced the Closing the Gap intervention tool, we've encouraged schools to regularly review the impact of what they're doing. So we're not wasting time if it's not something that's working as well as it should.
So just a supplementary on that. So what do you regard as more regular? Is that sort of once a term or something slightly more?
It does depend on the intervention, but no, I think more than once a term. I mean, a term can be what, 12 weeks, 3 months. I think you want to be knowing very quickly. It might be regularly reviewing, literally lesson by lesson, certainly weekly, some kind of ongoing review to see if progress is being made. I would say the more the better would be the general rule of thumb.
Thanks, Billy, and thanks, Nick. Councillor Cuthbert, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious about this. Presumably these interventions are not necessarily under CYPPs, that they haven't got YPPs as such. But how regularly would you review a YPP in that case?
Again, you're right for the first instance. Children on CYPPs may be running interventions or may be involved in interventions, but we will be running interventions with a whole host of children that don't necessarily have a child and young person's plan. In terms of the child and young person's plan, again, depending on level of need, depending on the progress of the child, there can be regular points of review. I would say reviewing termly would be absolutely considered, at least an informal review with child, staff and parents to review that child and young person's plan and the actions contained within it.
Thanks again, Nick. Thanks, Councillor Cuthbert. Billy Hen.
Thank you. Going back to the bigger document and coming under safeguarding and child protection, it's a really small part of the document. It's only one paragraph, but it says at the end, areas of development have been agreed with the school and education authority. So I've just asked what areas of development they were talking about, because it's not very descriptive in what they've actually written in the bigger report.
No, and given that it is safeguarding and child protection, yeah, that's the standard phrase that they will use in the report. In this case, it doesn't refer to any particular individual. What they asked the school to do was to ensure that children on part-time timetables were reviewed regularly in line with Perth and Kinross guidance, which is every 6 weeks minimum.
Thanks again, Nick. Any further questions or indeed comments? No. Thank you very much for coming in. Just a couple of very brief comments I've got, and I know Margaret McMillan's not here, but I would just like to place on record our thanks for everything that she's done. She was the Hedy at Our Ladies when my oldest started school, and that was a few years ago. So just it is important that we place a record of thanks to her, but also welcome as well. We're delighted to have you from Stirling. So welcome, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming in today as well. That was really helpful, I felt, and enjoyed your presentation as well. So thank you very much. Thank you. Eve, I think you're going to introduce Gilton for me, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Giltown Primary School was inspected by HMI during the week of the 10th of March 2025. It was a full model inspection and included the nursery. At the time of inspection, Mrs. Angela Thompson was acting head teacher in the school, whilst a permanent head teacher was being recruited. Mrs. Thompson had been in school since August 2024. At the time of inspection, Giltown Primary School was made up of a nursery of 10 pupils and 2 primary classes with 37 children in 2 composite classes, a primary 1 to 3 and a primary 3 to 7. The school had been through significant change, with almost all staff changing at the beginning of the year. Numbers across the school had doubled in the last 2 years and tripled over the last 5 years. Mrs. Thompson worked with the new team to ensure continuity of learning and high standards were maintained across the school. The primary school and nursery both had positive inspections. Evaluations for the primary stages are leadership of change, good, learning, teaching and assessment, good, ensuring well-being, equality and inclusion, good, raising attainment and achievement, good. Evaluations for the nursery class are leadership of change, good, learning, teaching and assessment, good, ensuring well-being, equality and inclusion, good, securing children's progress, good. I would like to share with you the key strengths identified by the inspection team. They said that the school was led effectively by the acting head teacher. The new staff team work well together across the school and nursery. They have created a welcoming and nurturing culture where children feel valued and cared for. Across the school, the nursery children are respectful, kind and welcoming, and as a result, they are happy, engaged and are making good progress in their learning. The acting head teacher and staff have developed effective approaches to support them in monitoring children's progress in literacy and in numeracy over time. In the school and nursery, staff work closely with partners to provide effective support for children facing challenges in their learning and well-being. I would now like to hand over to Mrs. Angela Thompson to talk about the 3 areas for action and the planned activity to support improvement.
Good afternoon, everybody. The first main point for action was the acting head teacher and staff should develop further approaches to better involve children, parents and partners in improvement planning processes. In doing so, they should provide children and staff with more opportunities to lead and influence change across the school and nursery. So the planned action or action that has been taken and the impact. The acting head teacher continues to involve and consult parents about the improvement planning process, both in person and via questionnaires and surveys, to ensure their views are gathered and taken forward where appropriate. A school improvement parent group is to be established to ensure parental views and ideas influence the improvement planning process. Leadership groups, e.g. Pupil Council, have been established to make certain that pupils have a say about the improvement planning processes. All pupils are involved, including the nursery. Feedback is shared during assemblies. This has ensured that pupils influence the improvement planning processes. A school improvement pupil working party, specifically for the current school plan, is to be established. Action point number 2. Staff in the primary school need to continue to raise awareness and develop children's understanding of their wellbeing and rights. Information about wellbeing and rights has continued to be a key focus during weekly assemblies. Staff have discussed and supported pupils with key aspects of their wellbeing. The Glasgow Motivation and Wellbeing Profile, this is a 20-item questionnaire which aims to explore the motivation and sense of wellbeing amongst learners, has been completed. Staff are in the process of analysing this and following up any issues with pupils. Following this will be a comparison with the information we held previously around wellbeing to ensure there are no reoccurring themes and to make certain we monitor wellbeing more rigorously. As part of our leadership programme, there is now an established Committee for Rights Respecting Schools. This has focused on exploring children's rights, and members have fed back to their classes after each meeting. Staff are in the process of ensuring that the school is labelled by the pupils appropriately to reinforce knowledge and understanding of key rights, such as Article 16, the right to privacy. Again, that's around getting changed for PE, the use of the toilet, or whilst accessing first aid, etc. We're signed up to the Rights Respecting Schools programme with a view to achieving Rights Respecting Schools bronze status by January 26. Class charters have continued to be created to and adhered by the pupils. Teaching staff are aligning current learning to children's rights and referring these rights where appropriate to make these real for pupils, e.g. Article 38, Protection in War links to the interdisciplinary topic of World War II. An establishment of Article of the Month has ensured a more in-depth focus on key articles such as Article 12, says they still have the human right to have their opinions and for these opinions to be heard and taken seriously. It says that the opinions of children and young people should be considered when people make decisions about things that involve them. And this links into our previous action point of being more involved in the school improvement planning process. Action point number 3. Across the school and nursery, staff should review and improve approaches to planning to ensure learning is sufficiently challenging for children. This will support all children to make the best possible progress with their learning. So Perth and Kinross staff have supported staff development, school staff development relating to the planning of learning to ensure this is sufficiently challenging for all our pupils. There is more detail in teacher planning, which ensures that preparation is completed to a high standard. Staff have engaged with good practice visits to other local small schools, and they've brought back and applied their ideas, learning and knowledge gained, especially relating to pace and challenge in a multi-composite setting. Planning meetings have continued to be rigorous, but there's more detail and focus and general dialogue regarding pace and challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That was good. Thank you very much. Questions and comments, please. Billy Hearn.
Thank you, and thank you for your report there. And it's a good assessment again. I just want to pick up on one thing in the summarised inspection findings, and it's with regards to the paragraph on page 12 about the PEF funding. And it's talking there about you've used the PEF funding for additional staffing for children with additional support needs. It's the last comment, and I don't know whether this is standard on reports or not, but it says as a next step, school staff should track the use of PEF funding more rigorously to ensure that targeted interventions are helping to reduce poverty-related attainment gap. Is that standard, or what were they getting at there, and what were they, by reading that sentence, criticising on your use of PEF funding?
I don't think they were criticising our use of PEF funding because we've been using the funding appropriately and well. I think it was more about the actual recording of the progress on the PEF planning tool. So I think it's just been a bit more detailed in the PEF planning tool rather than the actual support that the children were given. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Cuthbert, yes. I should have looked at my computer there before I asked.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, I note the first bullet point. It's about develop further their approaches to better involve children, parents and partners in the improvement planning process. I'm just wondering, how do you involve parents? Do you involve the parent council? Do they come in and feed their ideas back to you? And do you do questionnaires or anything like that with parents?
Yes, we involve the parent council quite extensively with school planning process, but I think it's the wider parental community we perhaps could do that a bit better, just to make sure that we're making sure that all their ideas and opinions are taken forward as appropriate. So rather than just the parent council, just making sure it's fully involving everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. This question is probably for you, Nick. And in the report, it talks about, and I recognise that there's a period of time elapsed between the two, but it talks about the parent, say, a majority of parents expressed concern regarding the significant changes to staff. And I'm sure that's not a reflection on the staff and leadership, but just about the general sort of changes that had gone on in the school. The local authority should continue to inform parents of their plans to provide long-term stable leadership for the school. Also recognising that Gilton as a community is changing quite a lot with all so there'll be a lot of churn and change within that too.
I can come in for that one. We have now recruited, so I thought I'd like members like to know Bryony Stevenson is going to be joining us on the 1st of December, which hopefully give that stability back to the school. And, you know, in terms of in that interim period, you know, having Angela there off as an experienced deputy head, you know, offering that stability across that team as best we could. But now we have actually recruited going forward, so that's some good news to report.
Thank you for that. It's really good news. And I'm sure Angela's done an absolutely first-class job because I've known her for a long time and I know that's her style. So that's good to know.
Could I just follow up there by saying that the inspectors did really comment on that, because obviously there was a whole new staff team and we were really conscious of the staff to minimise the impact on the children, and the inspectors really commented on the fact that there was no impact on the children, which was really positive, and we were really pleased that that was the case.
Thank you. If there are no more questions or comments, I say thank you to all the head teachers, but I do mean it. And I think the one observation, I hopefully not simplistically, that I have is that given, and it's been referenced, that the amount of change that Gilton has had, the fact that leadership of change was good, it strikes me as being really impressive. And I think that's down to you in particular, but also your staff. So if you could take our thanks back to them for that, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Much appreciated, and I certainly will feed that back to the staff team. They'll be pleased with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Councillor Barrett, you have a comment as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you. This is a really good report across the board and the recognition of what you've achieved and your team in the time. I just wanted to say thank you for that and for your reassuring plans for tackling the areas for improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Thank you again, Mrs. Thompson. Much appreciated. Eve, I think you're going to introduce Perth Academy for me, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Perth Academy is a 6-year secondary and had 1,018 pupils on roll when last visited. It is also a Gaelic medium education centre. In November 2023, there was a full inspection carried out by Her Majesty's Inspector from Education Scotland, and the following assessment was made. Leadership of change satisfactory, learning, teaching and assessment weak, wellbeing, equality and inclusion weak, raising attainment satisfactory. Inspectors then carried out a follow-up visit within 12 months of the publication of the letter. It is this visit that is the focus of today. During the visit, inspectors noted that school had made progress against the recommendation that the local authority should continue to work with the head teacher to stabilise school leadership and support school improvement further. All key stakeholders, including learners, should be engaged more effectively in agreeing improvement priorities. They noted senior leaders driving forward change at pace, middle leaders feeling empowered and sharing good practice, and improvements in leadership by young people. They also noted that there has been good progress against the recommendation that staff need to improve the quality of learning and teaching across the school. They should plan tasks and activities that are motivating, relevant, and set at the right level of difficulty for young people. They noted the clear focus on improving learning, teaching, and assessment, and the impact of a working group, including young people. They also noted that appropriate progress was made against the recommendation that the local authority should continue to support staff as they improve Gaelic and implement their vision for change. Young people should be encouraged further to continue with Gaelic medium education as they move from primary to secondary stages and through the senior phase to gain qualifications. All staff across the school should play their part in developing a positive ethos for Gaelic that promotes equity and equality. Inspectors commented on the school's commitment, detailed improvement plan priorities, recent appointments and professional learning. Finally, inspectors noted that insufficient progress was yet to be made against the recommendation that senior leaders and staff should review approaches to improving wellbeing, attainment and achievement to enable all young people to maximise their potential and achieve success. All stakeholders should contribute to improving wellbeing for the whole school community. They advise that schools should consider a range of strategies to ensure learners are treated equitably, ensure the concerns of young people are addressed, and that resources are used appropriately. The inspection team will carry out another inspection within 23 months of the publication of this visit letter, which was published in May 2024. I will now hand over to the head teacher, Eleanor Paul, who will talk us through the response to the visit and further progress to date.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Fiskerma, Ms. Misha, Mrs. Paul. I'm working on my Gaelic. I was delighted that inspectors found we had made good progress in learning, teaching and assessment between the first and further inspections, because this is, alongside relationships, the foundation of a successful school. I'll take you through the three main points of focus to explain our progress since the inspection: learning, teaching and assessment, professional learning and well-being. I will also touch on improvements we have seen in attendance and attainment. Learning, teaching and assessment. Following the initial inspection, we developed our learning with pupils, staff and parents to agree a shared understanding of what the structure of an excellent lesson looks like at Perth Academy. Once established, our focus is in undertaking lesson visits, and quality assurance was on ensuring the structure was followed and that the quality of the various parts of that structure was improved over time. All staff are supported to produce high quality, well-structured lessons with a strong focus on consistency. Staff collaborating on our learning together as a team, which is part of our vision as a school, is what led to these significant improvements. We continue to consolidate this firm foundation and are now continuing to build on this. As you will be aware, the profile of additional support needs of young people presenting in schools has changed over the last few years, and with this there is a need to upskill ourselves as practitioners to ensure we are equipped to meet these needs wherever possible at universal level. And it is my aim to build the confidence of our staff, to empower them to have that confidence that they can meet the needs of our learners and are supported to do so. Improvements in quality and accessibility of ASN information was one of the points that were made by the inspection team, and we have pulled together this information into a one-stop shop. So the comment was around about finding information and the ease of that for teachers to improve their accessibility to the information they need to support a learner in their class. Teachers are expected to use this information for planning, and the link for the pupil support overview is also found within that one-stop shop, which the pupil has a voice in creating alongside the parent. In relation to professional learning, our professional learning programme for staff over the next two sessions, this session and next session, is focused on meeting needs to improve wellbeing, equality and inclusion. Young people who feel their needs are understood and planned for have an increased sense of confidence and belonging in their learning, which is what we are trying to build. We're collaborating with a range of partners from education and learning, PKC, as such as educational psychology colleagues, education support officers, quality improvement inclusion officers, and our workshops will be on topics such as differentiation and adaptive approaches, use of assistive technology, dyslexia, neurodiversity, and all of these things are geared towards building that confidence level and understanding at classroom level. We're currently working with our colleagues Di Cantali and Donna Day from University of Dundee, who wrote the National Framework for Inclusive Practice for the GTC. They worked on with our staff on the most recent inset day and are working with the Depute to develop the professional learning programme for next session after we have done the session that we've done this year. Individual teacher action plans, support action plans have been put in place to support those identified as requiring that additional level of support with their practice. These are led by the principal teacher, supported by the Depute Link. Examples of why this might be the case: issues with support and challenge, pace and challenge, appropriate planning and relationships. We have a programme of continued rigorous quality assurance, learning walks, departmental reviews, quality assurance calendar, and principal teachers have a key role to play in quality assuring the teachers that they line manage and have responsibility for, and this is supported by the deputes. We have our Road to Rise scrutiny group, which continues, which is a collaborative group of parents, pupils and staff, a small group who take a deeper dive into the school improvement plan monthly and how that's going, and it just gives a bit more structure and depth to the understanding of a group of parents who can then communicate that out to other parents, and we're drawing on their skill sets such as project management, people who work in the NHS, people who work managing people, and we welcome that scrutiny and support that the parents who are involved in that bring. We have, in terms of well-being, obviously it was a disappointment to us to hear that we were still needing to do further work, but this was not a surprise because it was a lot to move on in the terms of 12 months in relation to learning, teaching, wellbeing, equality and inclusion, and we had made strides in that which were recognised in the report. In relation to the central team, the QIO Inclusion has worked very closely with the newly appointed Deputy Support who came into post in August to support him with strategic planning, to get the right people in place to support the school appropriately. We've had a focus on safe in school. We measure pupil wellbeing monthly with Shinari indicators and twice per session using the Glasgow Motivational and Wellbeing Profile. We've seen 15 to 20% improvements in the Shinari indicators, particularly around safe and included, between when the inspectors left in February and June. After the inspection, the 68 pupils out of the 1,000 who had indicated that they didn't feel safe in school in their survey responses were interviewed individually, staff asking what the nature of their concerns was, and most of this was related to corridor behaviour and the dining hall, and we've worked with Tayside Contracts to change the queuing system, which has improved the dining hall experience significantly, and we have staffing in the toilets before school, at break and at lunch times to support with that sense of safety. Pupils themselves have led improvements in this area with our introduction of the Corridor Charter, which was created through Pupil Voice Conference. So we have pupil voice leaders who lead the conferences, gather the views of a wide range of pupils who they do workshops with over the course of the day. And then all of that was taken back to the pupils at a second conference where they then consulted on the language of the Corridor Charter, what they wanted that to look like. And this has been linked to the UNCRC articles. So for example, we use part of the Corridor Charter is we use calm voices and kind language, being respectful to each other, which is linked to Article 29. A child and young person's education should help them build respect for other people in the world around them. All staff have a clear role to play in emphasising and enforcing the Charter. They're also asked to ensure controlled exits of pupils to minimise the rush, and new S1 pupils are being let out a few minutes early before each bell. In relation to bullying, the recording of bullying incidents has gone up since the initial inspection, and I would say that I welcome this because we have triangulated that with pupils who indicated that they had experienced bullying. with the number of incidents recorded in school, which at the first inspection there was a slight discrepancy there, but now it's in line, and we've introduced a review process where for a pupil indicates that they've experienced bullying 3 weeks after the incident's taken place, the pupil has a follow-up conversation, and whether they are satisfied that the situation's been resolved, it was dealt with properly, is discussed and recorded. So the young person's voice is included in our system. In relation to staff wellbeing, after the first inspection, staff had worked to agree what the Shannari indicators meant to them as a staff in Perth Academy, which was mentioned in the report. It was early at that stage to see the impact of that taking effect, but these are measured termly, and actually improvements were seen across all indicators between term 2 and term 3 ratings last session. I've also conducted, since the inspection return visit, one-to-one meetings with each member of staff, and that was to give an opportunity to raise any barriers to feeling respected and included. I asked everyone 5 questions, and it's been a really helpful exercise in terms of building relationships, and it gives me an opportunity to share key expectations and messages in person, which is really important in that building collective vision and increasing staff morale. And the feedback anecdotally from staff has been that they've really appreciated that time being given for that exercise. I've also been asking about leadership development of individual members of staff, and we've included this in the working time agreement this year. So there are 10 hours for whole school leadership, in which we're trying to build that sense of community through being involved out with your classroom and the department. And alongside all of this work, we have seen improvements in attendance and attainment. So in relation to attendance, you'll be aware that this is a national concern, but our overall attendance rose by 0.8%, which is small. However, what is more encouraging is that the Perth Academy have closed the gap between the PKC average and the school from 4% to 2.8% between 2023 and 2025. School improvement in an organisation the size of Perth Academy relies on stability at senior level leadership and the empowerment support at middle leadership and classroom level. This takes time. The education and learning colleagues helping the school to stabilise the team was very instrumental in making sure that we were able to include and improve the attainment, attendance, outcomes for young people. And my senior leadership team, as stated in the report, are driving forward change at pace across the school. Our drive for all staff to be on board, confident and thriving, and all pupils being included, engaged, proud and enjoying their learning with us is our goal that we are fixed on. Realising our vision, as a team we will rise, which in Gaelic is Mar Skippe Éirishin. The journey continues, but we are invigorated by the challenge and encouraged by the evident progress in this report, and the Inspectorate will return to review our progress again in 2027. I've tried to cover all of the things in the report that I thought may be of interest to you, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Pescarmat and Tapale, me too, with regards to the Gaelic. Questions and comments, please. Billy Hearn. Councillor Barrett, sorry.
Thank you, convener. My first question was going to be, were these findings as expected? So it was reassuring, that if disappointing, that you weren't surprised by the finding about well-being. On that, I wanted to ask, I get the impression from the comments from the inspectors that there might be an issue with some members of staff not being fully engaged in this. And I just wondered what's being done to improve staff understanding of the commitment that's needed to pupil well-being and improving attainment and achievement for all, including stretch targets. Thank you.
I think just to come in first on that one, in terms of from the local authority education learning team, there's been an awful lot of work put in to support Perth Academy around inclusion, and so the inclusion officers are in, and part of that is around building capacity and professional learning for all staff in key areas to support them in terms of inclusion, wellbeing and equality. So that's sort of one of the key things that have been put in there, and there's a whole programme set up for the coming session around there's been a needs analysis and an identified programme addressing gaps for staff. So that's one of the things that's been really key here to support the school going forward.
I would add that it's very important to us that we take people with us. And so the range of things that I've described in terms of one-to-one meetings, support plans, it being very clear throughout the school what the expectations are, the standards expected of teachers and the support available, and where there is a requirement for additional support, that's put in place. And what we want to do is make sure that all young people can have the same experience in terms of relationships and how they're met in the classroom, and to ensure that they are encouraged and confident as learners in Perth Academy, regardless of which classroom they enter. And in relation to stretch aims, each department has their own aims. The school has its stretch aims. I did actually forget to mention about our attainment improvements, which we have risen on 3 of the quality indicators above the PKC average, with our 5 at level 5 particularly strong in S4. And what I would say about our attainment and attendance figures is that stability and improvement that we're seeing beginning is the result of a long-term period of work of staff at classroom, departmental and whole school level understanding what our targets are and what that means for them.
Thank you. Bailey Hen, please.
Thank you. My question was pretty much the same as what Councillor Barrett's just said there, but I think I'm going to add a bit more in what you said there, working with the teachers to improve their knowledge. But as the line says, a minority of staff are not yet fully aware of the needs of young people in their classes and their responsibilities in relation to meeting their needs. That to me is a lack of training. And I don't know how long those particular teachers have been a teacher, whether it's a lack of training for new teachers or whether it's something that older teachers that have been there for a longer time, have not had the training for or the understanding. And does that particular minority of staff, is that the same minority of staff that continue to report that their well-being is not supported, or is that a different group of staff?
I would just say that in terms of supporting teachers' feelings of privacy that they don't share with me, specific people, but that we did have a detailed discussion about the profile of the teachers' responses, where they've picked this up from. Why we have put the professional learning programme in place that we have this year is specifically in relation to that comment in the report, because wellbeing, equality and inclusion is huge, but actually I felt the message was quite clear that pupils are perhaps not reporting good quality wellbeing indicators in relation to their learning because of needs and training around those needs. So that's why I approached the people from Dundee University, because they wrote the inclusion framework for the GTCS for Scotland, and what we have is a range, and they also are in charge of initial teacher education at Dundee University. So they have cutting edge training that they're doing with new people new into the profession, and as you rightly say, that is a requirement for all teachers who are in the profession already. So we're trying to match the two up so that if you're a new teacher to the school, or if you've been here for 20 years, you understand the needs and the approaches and strategies that are needed now. So our plan is to upskill the staff across the year in relation to these different workshop topics, and then to continue with that with the Dundee University support in looking at professional practice for the year ahead.
I just come in to add to that in terms of your general question about sort of upskilling in terms of staff. Just prior to the visit, the inspection visit, the local authority carried out a VSE in terms of which supported our inclusion team in terms of doing that mapping exercise. So a review was carried out, supported them to do a bit of a mapping exercise in terms of looking at where and working with the school in terms of where that gaps were in terms of upskilling. And I think when you're asking about, you know, the reasons for those gaps in staff, it can be for a multitude of reasons. You know, it can be, you know, staff experience, sure, but also it can be, you know, the changing dynamic of a school, which Eleanor talked about in her report in terms of that ASN and that changing context over time. So it's just supporting the school to map out where those gaps are and to get that consistency across all teachers across Perth Academy, which I think is going to be really key.
Thank you both. Councillor Cuthbert, please.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, self-evaluation scores are currently, there's 2 satisfactory and 2 weak in the self-evaluation. I'm just interested, when do you think that'll get to 4 at good? Do you think it's going to be this year, next year? Just trying to get a feel for how quickly these changes can happen.
I think it's quite challenging to jump more than one change within an academic session. I asked the inspection team whether they could commit to an actual evaluation on learning, teaching and assessment, for example, because they were very positive about it. And what they said was, this visit is a follow-up. Here's your evaluative feedback. It's for you to take that on board and take it forward. I would be hoping that we would be good for learning, teaching and assessment by the end of next session, once we've conducted this professional learning programme. And wellbeing, equality and inclusion, I would very much hope that when we get to the next inspection visit in 2 years' time, that they will be saying that they have no concerns and they're happy to allow the school to carry on its improvement journey. But very much not complacent in terms of where we're at, and we have quality improvement indicators and evaluations which range from unsatisfactory to excellent. So the fact that we are moving towards more positive ones is great, but we are obviously aiming higher than that, and we would like that to be noted that that's in our sights.
Thank you, Mrs. Paul. Thank you, Councillor Cuthbert. Any further question and or comment? Caroline, Councillor Shires. Yes, please. Thank you.
It's been really useful this afternoon, very comprehensive, covering such a wide range of activity in the school. Really interested in your corridor charter, is that what it's called? Yeah. And really hoping, you know, because it just seems, you know, the report mentions it's a few young people that are making these other young people feel unsafe and know all the work with parents, but hope that those other parents might engage in that corridor charter alongside their young people just to help support it. But we're all right behind you and your staff, and just want you to know that as you go on that journey, and it has been a journey that you've been on, the authority and all the elected members will do all we can to support you as you keep going. And I like your aiming for beyond just those next steps. That's really positive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your kind comments. I'll take that back to the staff team.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. If there are no more questions or comments, I think what I would just like to add, because that was a very comprehensive answer. There's lots of information here as well, so you can speak about it all afternoon, but nobody really wants us to do that. But I think in summary, I think it's nice to see that there's been progress from 12 months ago. There needed to be progress, and there has been, which is really nice. But also, I think everybody's aware that there's still a lot of work to be done over the next 23 months. I think everybody knows that, and you know, good luck with that. It would be really nice if the inspectors came back in 23 months and it was 4 goods, that'll be challenging, but I think that is a reasonable aspiration, if I can, you know, quote Councillor Cuthbert on that, not quite directly, but yes, so good luck, best wishes, and thank you for today. David, I think you're going to speak a little bit about daycare and kids clubs and childminding.
But I was probably just going to invite any questions or comments that elected members had round about actually the report in its totality before we finished including that. So if that's okay.
Well, that's great, thank you. So questions, comments on the totality of the report, please, elected members. Councillor Cuthbert, please.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Under 4.22, care inspections, daycare of children, it says for the 20 indicators inspected, 11 received a very good, 8 received good, and 1 received adequate. I was just wondering which one was adequate. I couldn't find it myself in the report.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I don't have that data to hand as well, which I should have done when I read it before I came in for that 1 indicator. So I'll make sure that gets to elected members immediately after the meeting.
Thank you both. Any further questions and or comments on the report generally? No, good. Well, thank you everyone for today. It's been useful, I think, and much appreciated. Thank you. I think we need to, sorry, I think we need to formally agree with the report. I should say that, I think. Can we, thank you. Thank you. Cheers.